Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our take on it, featuring Slim and Shona. Hello, Shona. How are you doing?
I am well this fabulous Tuesday, James. What about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's this is becoming so much fun. It's almost like you can't wait until the week passes and we get a chance to do it again. I hope you feel
Yeah,
that way as well. But fun and informative as well. But we are trying to get our guests on, and Shona, if you would like to talk a little bit about what our subject is tonight is, and
certainly.
in the meantime, I'll try to make contact with our guest.
All
She's trying to
right.
get on. Okay.
Certainly. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, our focus is a little different from our previous shows earlier this month of October because there's always widespread advertisement in October about breast cancer awareness. But a lot of people don't know that October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month as well. So, for that reason, I did a Facebook post earlier today um, showing that I am rocking the purple and the pink for domestic violence and breast cancer because they do overlap and they are both extremely important. Um, we also have plans this evening to have on a guest. Her name is Dr. Ernestine Duncan. It should be really interesting because we're doing a an update to my own story. So this is very personal. I don't know if all of you have gotten to see my earlier podcast, which actually brought to light my story of my journey of domestic violence from when I was probably barely past my teenage years, early marriage, and actually, I was a teenager when I got married, and I became abused in a relationship after I left my husband back in the 80s, 1980s. And it was so intense that I ended up fleeing for my life with my three children. Um, and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia in the late 80s, where I did not know a soul, had never even been to Atlanta. Uh, but I followed my instincts and I was truly living on adrenaline because I had to do what I had to do to survive for my three children. Um, we ended up in Atlanta, Georgia, in somewhere around 1987, 1988. Um, we came to Atlanta and lived in a shelter for homeless people. Um, Eventually, we got public housing. Um, I always worked, even when we lived at the shelter. I worked, did work for a company that paid you daily to go out and work. And wow, I worked two jobs most of the first years that I was in Atlanta to take care of my children. Um, and Eventually, I got a pretty good job that afforded me an opportunity to be able to retire. Um, so uh, I did retire actually for a few years and went back to work for the same company. So now I am back at work. My children are long grown. Um, we are all here. And the big update is that um, earlier this year, you would really have to know the history of the journey. The person who was my abuser was my son's father, and he actually has passed away since the last time we brought up this subject on the podcast. Um, I was in town in my hometown of Portsmouth, Virginia, for a funeral for my sister-in-law. God rest her soul. Um, and so the night before the funeral, we got word that my son's father had had a heart attack. Now, mind you, whenever I do visit home or did visit home for all of those years, it was always looming in the back of my mind that I may bump into him. And so that certainly gave me a sense of relief, even though I was there for the funeral. Um, and I want to say maybe about a week later, in April, uh, he did pass away. So that is the end of an era for me. Um, and I see our guest is on.
Yes, we do have Dr. Duncan now. And Dr. Duncan, can you hear us? And you can see us, and we can see you.
I can hear you, I can see you, and good evening.
That's great. That's great. And thank you, Dr. Duncan, for coming on. And Dr. Duncan is no stranger to this social uh, this media and our platform. She's been. Now, let me tell you, I met Dr. Duncan when I was in the hospital. We were talking about that earlier, Dr.
Wow.
Duncan, through a family member. She came over with a family member to see me. I did not know her at all, but he introduced her, and then later on, I don't know how we connected later. I think I saw you at a few family functions, and I found out that you were a doctor in School of Psychology at Norfolk State University. And I said, "Oh, I'm doing this radio program. How about coming on the show and having a conversation?" It's pretty new to me. And she agreed and came over. I remember coming over to the studio in Norfolk, and it has just rained and the roof leaked, so we had to step over water inside the building, not outside, inside the building. It was an old building, the old
Yeah,
Bishop Willis building. And then
yeah,
when we moved, you came to that as well.
yeah.
And we appreciate it. Early in the morning, like 6:30.
Early
So
in the
you had to
morning.
get up like 4, you know.
Early in the morning. Yeah.
but
And then,
Wow.
and she's been coming on ever since. She's made many appearances on
Look at God.
Portsmouth
mhm.
Coffee
And look
Talk
at how
about different
small that
subjects.
area is.
Yes, indeed. So, and she's a member of the Grove Baptist, Grove Church,
Okay.
church that I
Okay.
grew up in, and still associated with. And so she's involved with different things. And Dr. Duncan, you just had a program there not too long ago on domestic violence, or was it domestic violence or breast cancer? One of the two.
so historically, we have done domestic violence in the month of October with the women's ministry. We are our sister's keeper. But this year, we actually returned to breast cancer. And so we had a
Mhm.
fashion show with a purpose. We had a panel discussion. But those are the things that we have done over the last 3 or 4 years as it relates to domestic violence.
Yes,
Okay.
and if I didn't mention, she's a professor of psychology at the Norfolk State
You know,
University
state,
and a
yeah,
former clinician,
yes,
seeing patients and everything. So she's highly qualified in a lot of aspects of mental health. And the study of psychology is studying human behavior. And that's what she does in preparing the next psychologist or
Love that.
psychiatrist or
Well,
mental health workers out there in the world.
well,
hmm
well I'd like to say that the 2 minutes that I went to college was I majored in psychology.
it's the only major there is.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I mean, who would take
They
anything
were an
else?
interesting 2 minutes, though.
Yeah. And I
I'm
think
sure they were. Yeah.
I think, Dr. Duncan, whatever major you take, you have to take some form of
You
psychology,
do.
right?
Yeah,
You
it
do
is a
run into that
general
somewhere. Yeah.
education
Mm,
requirement. You need to take it because, as I tell my students, there's no human or animal behavior that doesn't happen without psychology, right? Because psychology is the study of mental processes and our behavior. So there's nothing that's alive
Mm.
that doesn't involve psychology. So that's my rah rah speech for psychology. I know we're here
okay.
today to talk
So,
about domestic violence, and I did hear the story as I was coming in. Interestingly enough, I was actually, I think it's called backstage. I was backstage, but I was not connected.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I found
Cool.
a
I'm
way.
so glad we
You
didn't
found
talk
the
about
way
you.
into the studio. You found the door.
I found the door. You guys hit it. You guys hit it, but I found it. I kept knocking. I kept
Yeah.
knocking.
That's why you have to always be
So
careful what you
yes,
say about people.
Yeah,
You never know. But
that's
anyway,
true.
always have
I
good
was
things to say
babbling
about
a
people.
bit. So, Dr. Duncan, I was told that you did see the earlier podcast that I had with James after a half a bottle of wine.
in total honesty, I only watched a portion of it. I shared with him, excuse me, I shared with him that I've just taken another role at Norfolk State, and so it has me swamped. And
Mhm.
so
Mm,
in fact, I wasn't able to come at the original invitation because of that. But yes, I did see a portion of your previous podcast. Very powerful. What I did see.
okay.
Was it the
Okay.
wine or was it the was it the
It just, I guess it relaxed me enough to be able to just
Yeah,
flow through my thoughts.
yeah,
I'll say it gave
yeah,
me the courage to do that because it was a big step for me, and I it was actually a big relief when it was over. I actually sat in front of the computer for a few minutes, and I'm just saying, I did that.
yeah,
Oh my God, I did that.
yeah,
It was a good moment for me.
yeah.
And
Well,
before you all get
much
into it,
respect. Yeah,
Dr.
much
Duncan,
respect for that.
before you all get into it, because I just want to say, you know that Shona is, we graduated high school together, so we've been
Hmm.
knowing each other over the
A
years. And
long time.
after
Yeah,
high school, you uh, lose contact with some of your classmates,
yeah,
or you see them occasionally. So a lot of us, or myself, had no idea that Shona was going through what she was going through. She was still here in the
yeah,
city of Portsmouth. I think during that time, I had come back from college and was, starting to raise a family here. And I saw her one time on the corner, and with children. And after I passed, I said, "They look like Shona," but we had no idea. And listening to her when she was on the show, a lot of people, a lot of her friends, did not know she was going up, but she did have some friends that, thank God, that did know.
hmm,
And the biggest challenge was being in the city of Portsmouth. Everybody knows everybody, and
yeah,
every time she tried to get away, you know, her abuser found her,
yeah,
which
yeah,
was the reason for her just, going somewhere she'd never been before. So that was the premise of what happened. But it was just amazing how everybody that was surprised. So, and I just wanted to ask you how important it is for someone that's going through that to have that support system around them, even when they're going through it. Or, it's not always easy because sometimes people or family members don't believe you, especially if that abuser is really good at what he does at hiding the truth. You know.
yeah, yeah. That's a great question. I think well, there are a couple of things I want to say in regards to that. One of them is that usually, in terms of intimate partner abuse, a domestic violence between um, people who are romantically involved, many times the violence itself doesn't negate the love that the person feels towards their abuser. So that's one of the things that gets in the way. The second thing is that there are many people outside of the relationship who have opinions and judgments about what's going on, and they feel inclined, because of their care and their concern for you, to tell you what they think you should do. You should leave. You should call the police. You should do all of these things. What's most important is that people have a support system around them. People who understand that this is something that nobody wants to live through, but for whatever reason, they find themselves in that situation. And so it's really important to let people know, I'm here with you. Perhaps even I don't like that this is happening for you, but you're not by yourself. And so having a strong support system is crucial to someone who's in this situation. So I'm glad that you had that for you.
And Shona,
Yes.
going through that, and, going back with our conversation, and you talk how much, um, how long you were involved with, you know, that's one of the things that sort of threw me off too, because it's easy for somebody to say, well, why didn't you just walk away? Why didn't you just get out there? But, there were children involved. There were
Yes.
uh, that were probably in danger. And, you know, I think one of the things you mentioned that some of the people that you confided in didn't believe you. So talk about that experience and how that sort of added to, you not being able to completely walk away at first because, sometimes most time you have nowhere to go if people don't believe
Nowhere. There was nowhere that I could go that he didn't know somebody connected. Nowhere. That's how small the city was. It has grown a bit, I must say, in the last 40 years, but back then everybody knew everybody. And because I had been there all of my life, he knew pretty much everybody that I knew.
Right.
Because anybody that he wouldn't have known was way outside of our circle because there was that isolation, um, especially after time went on.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not like we had cell phones back then. You really you were just stuck. I moved from pillow to post. I moved so many times that I tried everything to try to keep peace. I tried to appease him. I tried to challenge him. I just tried everything,
Mhm.
everything, and nothing worked.
Yes.
So eventually, things became so intense. I just felt like I couldn't go on living that way because I wasn't living, and
Right.
my children were literally in hell, and
Mhm.
it wasn't their fault. They had
Right.
nothing to do with his psychosis, and we were all just on a roller coaster in hell for a very long time. So the way things played out, I ended up in the her shelter, um, and it gave me some time to, first of all, um, just sit and decompress some enough to clear my mind so that I could think um, intelligently and clearly about what direction I needed to go in. And while I was at the shelter, which was about 3 months, I did a lot of research because then they didn't have internet. They had all big, thick directories in the shelter. They had um, the whole network of shelters across the United States. I looked up statistics about, different places, what the job market was like, what the racial ratio was of different cities, um, the housing, costs and availability, stuff like that. And I was able to eventually make up my mind that I was going to go to Atlanta, Georgia. And the thing that really swayed me in that direction, because even when I left there, I left rumors that we had gone to Washington, D.C., we had moved to New York, just different places. So it would throw him off if he ever got wind of those rumors. Um, so there was one of the counselors at the Her shelter. Her name was Diane. I don't remember her last name, but she was from Snellville, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta, and she was telling me that it was a nice place to raise children, and so forth, which was what made me concentrate more on statistics about Atlanta, Georgia. So this was at the end of the year when January rolled around, and I ended up getting my W-2s. I was able to file for my income tax refund, and I got my mother to cash the check. So she bought us 4 one-way tickets on Amtrak to Atlanta, Georgia. And that's how we ended up there. I had alerted them ahead of time because I had called the shelter that I had in mind in Atlanta from Portsmouth while I was at the one there, and they said that they had room, and so I just put those things in motion. So they were expecting us um, when we got there, and it just so happened that the shelter that we were going to, they were just relocating the shelter from a not so nice part of town to the top floor of a church in Atlanta. And so they had construction underway. They were getting ready to move the residents, from the first location to the top of the church. So when we got there right before they actually relocated the other residences. So I got first pick of what room we wanted, because they had a few private rooms with a door and several beds in the room, and of course there's um, the big room that looks like a dormitory that you see on TV and movies. So we got a private room with a door, um, and the rest was just history. The rest was just history.
Hmm.
Were
Hmm.
you able to
That's
hear that?
some, somebody's phone. I don't know if this
Yeah.
doesn't sound like mine, but anyway, it stopped. But
So the rest is
okay, and
the
Dr.
rest
Duncan.
is. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I want you to finish before. I cut
Go ahead. It's a
you.
good time to
Okay, you
segue.
said the rest is history, and Dr. Duncan, we've had a young lady on, Kalima Overton Amin, and she's written a book called In Plain Sight about her experiences with abuse, and it was mostly emotional and abuse. That she talks about the abuser and as being narcissistic
Yes.
and able to really groom the women that they end up, because some people wonder, how did you even get involved with somebody like that, but
Hmm.
they don't show themselves in the beginning,
Exactly. Exactly.
and they're pretty good at not only grooming the person that they're involved with, but the family members and friends and everybody around them. So it's that's why you have so many women that are in those situations. So uh,
Yeah.
what about as far as human behavior? What men that are like that, is that, does that come from something in their childhood, or something that probably triggers them to be like that? It has to start somewhere, or does it?
The research that I'm aware of talks about um, individuals who abuse frequently have lived in homes as children where abuse was present in some form or fashion. And I know here that we are talking about intimate partner abuse, a man and a woman, but there are increasing numbers of uh, in, in, intimate partner abuse between homosexual couples.
Mhm.
But again, in every instance, one of the indicators, one of the correlations for people who abuse is that they often have witnessed, they've experienced abuse as children in their homes, and they kind of repeat the behavior. Um, Very typically, as you both have said, these individuals are very charming and manipulative when you first meet them. And so, what that does is it really aligns them with the partner. The partner is attracted to them. The partner, in many instances, they love them. But they also have that same effect on the partner's family and their friends. And so, as it's been said already, Sona said it, that often people won't believe you because they're like, oh, he's so nice. No, maybe you misunderstood, but that is a part of the charm that they exhibit. And the narcissism is that they begin to think that everything revolves around them, and they use manipulation to control people. And most usually it is physical, but it can also be financial. They can control money. There were no cell phones during the time that you experienced this, but now we see technological abuse where people, the phone is in their name or they constantly check the phone. These are all ways that abusers control and manipulate the person that they are abusing.
Wow, and you know, it doesn't help. And I just have to. I ran across this. It doesn't help when you have someone, the leader of our country and the free world.
Mm.
Uh, Let me see. Makes
Is he
finish.
frozen? Okay.
I think he's
Well,
looking for
anyway, go ahead. Uh, it was
uh,
something that our president said, and it doesn't help when you have someone in such a powerful position to say it, and maybe I can pull it up later. But
Oh,
you know, and the physical abuse, it always perplexes me how someone can be at that point, even if you had some problems in your early childhood to bring up, or you saw people being abused. Seemed like that would be something that would encourage you not to do that, especially if you see the pain that it caused, that you saw it inflicted on someone else. But you know, it's just hard to understand. You
yeah.
know, that kind of behavior where you beat on someone that is, in many cases, smaller than you, uh, not as strong as you, that you proclaim to love. And you mentioned the term intimate partner abuse, and that's a whole term, because sometimes men don't like to report this, where the woman
Yes.
is the abuser, and she
Yeah.
might be, you know, larger than the guy, or maybe not, but
Right.
she is the abuser, and he will not fight back because of his moral. And but a lot of times you don't get that reported as much because men, you know, the pride
Yeah.
like that. It could go
I
either way.
I did look up some statistics in regards to preparing for tonight, and right now they say that about 41% of women can report some form of abuse, while that's compared to 26% of men. But we do think that the numbers for men are underreported, as you
Mm.
said, because men will not often admit that this is something that's happening to them. But the same conditions apply. The person that's the abuser generally has begun to see that as a normal way of life. You know, I do understand what you're saying in terms of, it seems to me that if I saw that, I would consider it foreign and I wouldn't want to repeat it. But there are some people who see that, they live in that environment, and they accept it as the way that men and women interact with each other. They accept it as a form of something that happens in a relationship normally. And that's what happens.
and it only escalates over time.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Shona, I have to ask you, was that your kind of first experience? I mean, you didn't, sometimes women will see that in other places, which, keeps them, alarms them to when they run into somebody, they recognize the signs of that person early on. But like we said, they're pretty good at disguising who they actually are in the beginning. To
For,
talk about how that relationship started with you.
well, for me, I grew up the only girl. I'm the only girl, and I have three brothers. Um, so I didn't realize until actually the last 20 years how protected I was as the only girl. I was my father's only girl, so he kept me. He owned a barber shop in downtown Portsmouth, and I wasn't allowed to go to the barbershop very often, not like the boys, because men hung out there and the things that they would talk about, I guess. And anyway, the point that I'm making is looking back, I was pretty naive. I had not seen, you know, men and women fighting each other. No, that wasn't my experience. So it really wasn't easy for me to even accept that people even act this way, especially somebody who was extremely nice. You know what I'm saying? Um, it just never would have dawned on me that they would be capable of this kind of behavior, especially professing to love me so much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so by the time his jealousies and insecurities really started showing themselves, I was about to have our child. Um, and so I was in pretty deep. And so everything, like I said, it just escalates. It starts as you know, arguing. There's just nothing, there's no reasoning that can be done. There's just nothing to satisfy this person that's raising Cain in the household with children. um and it escalated to the point where he could not even keep it behind closed doors. You know, I had to. I went to school for a while, as I had stated in my the previous podcast. Um, I tried to go back to school, and eventually I had to let that go because I had black eyes. I couldn't go to school on certain days, so I ended up letting that go. I tried talking with people that we mutually knew, and I would end up getting beaten up because they told him what I told them, and he beat me for telling our business, you know. So I had to be extremely careful who I could even talk to about these things, and eventually, fortunately, like I said, he couldn't control himself to keep it behind closed doors. So um, people started to see what he was capable of, and I had so many people to tell me that they were going to handle this. He did what? But nobody ever really did anything. Um, we went to court right around, it's either 9 or 10 times. There were so many times that I lost count of how many times we went to court. As a matter of fact, after I came to Atlanta, the state of Virginia paid my way and the children's way back to Portsmouth to show up for court for a case that came up after we had relocated to Atlanta. Um, but back then, you know, you could drop the charges. It was just like a revolving door. He ended up well, he very early on he just displayed absolutely no respect for the law. That was not something that he feared. When I finally got a restraining order. That was just a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he would get locked up, the times that he did get taken away from my house, because a lot of times he would be gone before the police even got there. Um, so whenever he would get locked up, I didn't know who was bailing him out, but whenever he get bailed out of jail, within 30 minutes, he was back at my front door.
Mm-hmm.
There were times when I had to get my children up in the middle of the night and we went to a motel to stay just to get a full night's sleep, because faithfully he would call my phone at 4 or 5 in the morning just to make sure I didn't have somebody at my house with me. And I had to answer the phone, because if I didn't answer to appease him, he would be at my door within 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived that way, even though I wasn't with him, did not live with him. My kids were were terrified of him, even though I had strict orders not to let anyone in because I had to work, and they were uh, preteen, early teen years by this time. Um, there were sometimes I would call home from work and he would answer my phone because he was in my house, even though I had left instructions not to open the door for anyone. But if he came, he would intimidate them and make them open the door for him. Uh, there were times when I would stick my key in the door, me and the kids coming home from wherever, and we had steps that led right down into the living room. And as soon as I opened the door, he was walking down the stairs because he was in the house before I even got there. He didn't even have a key to my house. He would climb up the building because it was a townhouse. He would climb up the building and break in upstairs, a window upstairs. He would climb up the building and break in upstairs in the middle of the night to get in my house. Um, I did cite an incident where he once had me uh, held against my will. It was myself and my son was there, and so he had me laying on the sofa. I was on the inside, he was on the outside, so I couldn't go anywhere. I guess he was so tired because I don't know when this man ever even slept. I really had convinced myself at some point he must have a pact with the devil. He cannot even be human
Mm-hmm.
because he spent all of his time, 24 hours a day, knowing where I was and showing up there. I worked at a mall that had an outdoor entrance and an entrance into the mall. They had security on watch for him. If he entered either one of those doors, you know, they were on the alert for him because he would come and harass me at work on my job. Um, it was just a no-win situation for me.
Yeah.
So after some time and some very intense scenes where I really thought the last time I saw my life flash before my eyes, I knew in my heart of hearts that this was the last time I would ever see my children again. He beat me up in the dark, and I could see their faces just flashing in front of me one by one, just like you do see on TV, on some movies. That's exactly how it happens. I just knew that was the last time I would see anybody that I loved. And so I ended up in the shelter, and that gave me some footing to make a move because, like I said, in my heart of hearts, I had come to the conclusion at that time, in my heart of hearts, that someone is about to die. I did not know if it would be me or him. And by this time, I could clearly see one of my children killing him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the only recourse I had that I could see, I had one of two options: either put some distance between us or kill him. And then I'm going to jail for the rest of my life. And who's going to raise my children?
Right. Right.
Uh, and, and
There's
Dr.
so. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Duncan, I remember asking Shona when we had the interview about, and you've been a clinician before, and a lot of times when you see people or people that are abused, women or mostly, that are abused, it's usually after the fact and hopefully before anything drastic happens. But I remember asking Shona, did she think about seeking uh, therapy or help in that way before?
I'm
And she said,
laughing
"Hey,
again.
during those times it wasn't available. But how would that have helped? I mean, could it have helped her get out of that sooner, as well as help her in the court system? Because she talked about how often she had to go back to court to have some backing from a clinician during that court system, because like I just said, often you get those people after the fact to sort of, if they make it through it after the fact, to sort of ease their, mental stability. But doing that, could it help uh, more so in the beginning?
That is really a difficult question to answer because it is more on an individual basis than anything else. For some people, yes, definitely any type of therapy, any type of intervention can be helpful. It can be helpful in a number of ways. It may give them some coping skills that they can utilize to help them deal with the situations, because even as we're hearing Shona's account of what she had to endure, it is very traumatic. And so I want to pause at this point just to tell you how much respect I have for your courage, not only now as you're telling the story, but what you lived through. And even in your mind facing death or having to hurt someone else, it took a lot of courage to mobilize yourself and to make a plan, because your plan was very strategic. You know, you told some people you were going here, you told other people you were going, and you went neither place, right? And you had researched a place to go, and you kept your children together, and you were able to do all of those things, come back, testify in court. It took tremendous courage, but it also took tremendous strategy. And so I don't know if anyone has ever commended you for that, for the courage that you had to show in order to be standing and to be on this podcast today. So I start with that. But the question regarding therapy, it can help if an individual sees themselves as having the power to deal with the situation. Shona's story is not the typical story. Often people either stay in the abusive situation or unfortunately they do die. And so for someone to have utilized whatever resources they had to continue to work, to use your income tax um, uh, return, to be able to get the funds, to be able to be strategic. My mom cashes the check. My mom buys the tickets. All of those things took planning, and your planning was successful. But people either don't have those skills or they give up. And I want to talk briefly about a condition that often comes as a result of living in a domestic violence situation, and that's something called learned helplessness. It's kind of like a depression. And people will stop executing any actions to save themselves because they believe they won't work. I can
Mhm.
call the police, but what good will that do? Because he'll leave and he won't be here. I can have him incarcerated, but within 30 minutes, somebody's going to come and get him out. I can tell a mutual friend, and maybe he'll be embarrassed, or they'll confront him and they'll do, well, why would I do that? Because all that's going to do is make him more angry. And so many people develop a condition that we refer to as learned helplessness. They have learned that their agency is not going to do anything to improve their situation. And given that, they stop doing anything and they remain in the situation. So, again, I commend you for not allowing that to stop you from saving yourself and saving your family. On the other hand, going to therapy could be harmful to the individual.
Really?
It can be harmful to the individual. One of the things I learned in my training was that I had a supervisor who said to me, be very careful because often the things that you might suggest to people to do in a domestic violence situation could get them killed.
Mm,
Right. If they're still in it. Right. That's what's
You could encourage them to leave, you could encourage, but the very things that you suggest to them may put them at risk for more harm. The other thing, and I don't know if you consider this to be a positive or a negative, but many licensed clinicians are mandated to report when they believe that someone is a threat to themselves or someone else, or if they report that they themselves are in danger. And so, what that would then involve is reporting to an agency that might then again get the person in question harmed. But
mm,
that clinician is licensed, and with that license, they are mandated to report. And sometimes that reporting triggers, as you said, I told some of our friends, and when they said something to him, I got beat up again. And so it's a very precarious situation. There is no one size fits all. There is
no.
no absolutely right thing to do.
Yeah, it could be some situations where you need to have a very small circle, and it could be situations where you need a real large circle as far as protecting yourself. It's all up to the individual. And oftentimes it's kind of hard for that person that's being abused to even think clearly when they're trying to survive, or like you said, when there are children involved, and the main thing in your mind, how do I protect my children? You know, I can take this abuse, but my children, you know, and sometimes they put themselves in the first line of defense to take that abuse to protect their children,
That
Yeah.
is correct.
and
That's
that's just an
absolutely correct.
unfortunate situation to be in. And I'll share this with you all. I talked about next month is adoption month. I talked about me being adopted, and had three other brothers, older brothers, and I don't remember, but they tell me the three of us, were in a very abusive relation. Parents were in, my birth parents were involved in a very abusive relationship, to the point where the mother just got up and left, but she left all three of us, all four of us. And uh, thank God I don't remember, but it sort of psychologically affected my three older brothers.
Mm,
And one of my brothers, and he talks about it, he's writing a book about it. He became an abuser
mm,
because of what, exactly what we've been talking about. But he is sort of owned up to it, and is talking about it, and has
that's
gotten
good.
help there. But it was directly related to what he saw growing up. And luckily, I was too young, and I was at an age where I could be adopted out of that. But they were older and kind of aged out of the system, because we were in going from place to place, where people were keeping us, because the father was constantly in jail and an abuser, and he turned out to turn his life around. And by the time the mother wanted to come back and claim us, the courts said, you've been gone too long. You abandoned them. But and you try to look at her point of view, but then as the child, you say, how can you leave four children in the hands of someone that was abusing you? and then you try to look at her situation, she feared for her life. But so it was a precarious situation, but and I feel fortunate that I don't remember most of that, but it was
That's right.
a classic abusive situation. Well, not classic, but it was one of those abusive situations that covered a lot of the situations where one of the boys, I don't know about the others, became an abuser himself because of that.
I think it's very interesting that um, all people, I wouldn't say just the children, but all of the people in the situation, um, they process everything so differently. They all have different perspectives, and there are so many variables, such as their ages, their different ages, and their different perspectives from what's going on at any given point in time, um, that affects them all differently. They're all affected differently by the same situations going on in the home. They turn out differently, so differently from each other, uh, in terms of their actions and reactions because of what they have experienced in earlier life. And it's just really interesting. It's just like all of your kids are different from each other. They process everything differently from each other. Some are more intense than others. Um, some really uh, take away some really negative behaviors and feelings about just life in general because of what has gone on.
Yeah.
So they all have to be dealt with differently, especially like from my perspective. And I just feel like, first of all, thank you so much for the compliment, Dr. Duncan. There have been times throughout all of the journey, it has been, I want to say 37 years. I left Portsmouth in 77, 78. No, 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 I'm sorry, 87, 88.
Okay.
The end of 87, early 88. Um, and everywhere that I went to protect myself, because intellectually I can look at everything that I went through, and I just couldn't give up. But looking at how intense those situations were, I would think, well, I should be in a padded room, playing with my lip or something by now. When is it gonna come? You know what I'm saying? When am I? Or I would be literally wishing that I could just collapse so somebody could take care of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just
It makes
just
sense.
wish I could just fall on the floor and somebody
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
pick me up, and I wake up in the bed and they bringing me some soup and hot tea, but I just
Beautiful.
had
It's
to
not
keep going.
it's not
So
Yeah.
something you just
always, wherever
get
I
over.
went, met new people, I would always enlist somebody's ear that I felt comfortable enough to talk to on that level, to let them
Mhm.
know what I had been through. Because I'm serious. I really thought at some point there's going to be a moment when I'm just going to have a nervous breakdown. I don't know where I'm going to be. I may be, maybe another coworker may have said something that triggered something in me, and I just snapped. I always wanted somebody in near me to know something about what I had been through so they could explain for me,
Well, you've been able to.
why
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
acting this way.
Yeah.
But it, it,
Yeah.
it just never happened. I just thank God for having common sense and presence of mind. And I know a lot of people don't. I just feel very, very blessed, and I feel that I'm in a good place in my life,
Yeah.
and I deserve that.
You do. You really do. You spoke earlier about how people perceive things differently and they walk away with different behaviors, and some of them are good and some of them are not good. And those are personality characteristics, right? And each of us has different characteristics. Those are the unique things about us that allow people to make predictions. And it sounds to me like one of your characteristics is resilience, and that even in the midst of all of the chaos that was going on around you, you actually were still putting in stop gaps and protections so that if you did have a nervous breakdown, if you did, that people would still be able to understand that and be able to protect you. It sounds like to me you were always looking for someone to save you, to save, to step in and to intervene and to say this has to stop. And that person ended up being you. And that was the best protector that you needed of all.
Is it too late? I need a vacation.
Never too late. Never
Can I
too
just
late.
collapse and
Never too late. Never too late. I think we even said that about psychology and getting and go and studying psychology. It's never too late. It is never too late.
no, I
And,
really do feel like I'm in a good place.
Yeah, you
and
deserve
Dr.
it.
Duncan, as we wind down, you gave those stats about is it any studies showing now, you have so many people have so many opportunities to get information about what to look for. You have shows like this where more women are speaking up about their experiences. Is there any study or any indication that this kind of abuse is less than it was maybe say 10 years or 20 years ago, or are we still looking at love and emotion over information?
Um, if I understand your question correctly, the stats they change, right? We saw a real increase in domestic violence during COVID, right? Again,
Right.
and it spoke to the
Mm,
frustrations that
I
people were
bet.
feeling. Yeah, in regards to just keep even being sequestered at home all the time.
Mm.
Sometimes there's that break when you go to work that gives you
Yeah,
just what you need to
just
be able
what you need.
cope, right? And then you can come back home. But when people were home together under the stresses of COVID and everything that went with that, the death and everything, there was an increase in domestic violence cases. And then that seemed to taper some. But even now, as we're beginning to see things that are happening in this country around economics, people losing benefits, people being furloughed, people being, the government being shut down, it has increased the 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 reasons why people do the things that they do that are harmful to others. And the first um, victim is usually, our survivor is usually the person that's the closest to us, right? And so with
Mm.
all of these things that are happening currently in the climate that we're living in, we are beginning to see small ticks up in terms of domestic violence, always understanding that the numbers are usually underreported, more for men than for women, but that usually, if we're saying 41% of women and 26% of men, that is probably more like 50% and 30%
I
because
believe that.
people just don't report.
That's right.
Yeah, and we are seeing an increase in a different type of abuse, and that's the technological abuse that I referred to earlier. And we see that mostly with younger people that are using any type of this type of abuse is usually about control.
Mm.
And whether we try to control someone by physically assaulting them or verbally assaulting them or withholding money from them, it is still control. And so now we see younger people, the numbers are, overall, the numbers are increasing because this is a form of abuse, but more specifically, technological abuse, where people bully, they cyberbully, they do things online to manage people's identities. Even the hacking of people's identity is a form of technological abuse, and we are seeing significant increases in that.
Wow. Even this. Let's see if this comes up this time.
There's no crime. They said crime's down 87%. I said, no, no, no. It's more than 87%. Virtually nothing. And much lesser things that take place in the home, they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime. See, so now I can't claim 100%. There's no crime.
And you see what I'm talking about? If you have
Who,
someone
who
that
is
has
they?
one of the biggest platforms
Who is
in
this
the
they person?
world making comments like that, and Dr. Duncan, you just mentioned that, you know, how people, sort of make it, you know, sometime on social media with the bullying and people making comments like that, that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, at least 7 million people who voted for him, respect him and
Mm-hmm.
believe that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the challenges that we face along with what was already a challenge. And then
Right.
we get
Right.
the times, you know,
Right.
and I
I
think the
think.
times we're in now creates a lot of frustration
Yeah. Yeah.
between
I
couples
I
and
think
people.
I think what's important also is the fact that not only are there however many people who voted for him and believe him, but that also has unleashed a way of people now responding in ways that are similar. And I believe
Mm,
that that has a lot to do with why we're seeing these racial attacks, these homophobic attacks, because it has been unleashed from someone who is perceived to have power and control. And so now the behavior is emulated.
Wow.
because it's okay. They can get
It's
away
a,
with it. They know
right,
that they can get away with it now.
right,
Yes.
right. Exactly
Wow.
right.
Well, Dr. Duncan, thank you for coming on, and you've always been a wealth of information for us when you come on because of your expertise and and hopefully, I think one of the things we talked about, maybe down the road, you can come back and talk about how uh, what you're doing at Norfolk State and preparing young people to go into the profession. We need more minorities in the profession because a lot of times when people go to a clinician, they feel more comfortable sitting across from someone that looks like them. Not
Yeah,
taking anything from anybody else who's qualified to do it, but that's just the way some people think. And
yeah.
if you feel more comfortable with someone that looks like you, so thank thank you for what you're doing over at Norfolk State, and hopefully we'll see those numbers rise among the people that decide to go into the field of psychology or psychiatry.
I always appreciate the opportunity. It is, I need to learn how to say no more, but I will probably very seldom say no to an invitation to be able to discuss issues that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and they continue to be stigmas like mental health, like domestic violence. And we need to expose them and talk about them and normalize, not just accepting them as that's the way somebody is or that's the way that it is. So I appreciate you for the opportunity. I appreciate you for addressing the hard topics, the difficult conversations. And again, Shona, I appreciate and respect you for not only living this, but sharing it. And understand that I am certain that so many people are empowered and maybe even freed by your story, because just like we can talk about somebody in the White House being emulated by people and that behavior being enforced, somebody's listening to you and somebody's seeing you, and they're saying, if she could do it, I can do it too. So I hope that you don't sit down on your story. Some of us talk about it as a testimony. I hope that you don't sit down on your testimony, because it is powerful and it can be life saving if it hasn't already.
That is my prayer,
Hmm.
and I just want to take it to the lighter side for a moment. Dr. Ernestine Duncan, you get my bell. You get my bell. You get my bell. Yes.
I
Kudos to
appreciate that.
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. And I did want to mention, because you talked about the student. Thank you. That perhaps when I come back, if I come back to talk about that, I'll bring a student with me.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be
I
great.
Okay.
love that.
And
Okay.
and and the last thing I'll say, one of the things that came out of the initial interview that Shona and I had
Hmm.
was this program where we came
Yeah.
together and partnered together, and
That's where
we
it all
we
started.
we dealt with
Mhm.
breast cancer and some of the things that people revealed that they didn't think they could reveal once they started talking,
And a half
made
a
what we
bottle of
do
Stella
worthwhile.
Rosa.
And we have fun. We have fun on here as
That's
well.
where this
So
podcast came from.
yes, yes,
Yeah. Well, all I'll say is that you're talking my language. So
yes,
more power to you.
yeah. So sometime come on here, doctor, and have some fun with us.
I, I would
We'll
love
talk
to.
about those New York
We
days,
do.
when
We
you were
do
growing
like to
up as
have
an
fun.
awkward teenager.
That's the truth.
Yes,
Well, thank
indeed.
you both again.
Thank you.
Um,
We
Thank
appreciate
I
it.
you.
appreciate it.
And thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody, for watching. And stay tuned next Tuesday when we come back.
Subscribe,
We
subscribe, subscribe,
Oh, yes,
subscribe,
yes. Make sure you subscribe. This is a
subscribe.
brand new channel, and we're trying to build uh, the channel, and we hope that we'll be looking forward to you all letting us know what you want to talk about.
That's
And
right.
then we'll come on. But next month we'll get into a little bit of adoption. We'll probably have
Yes, we
a
will.
carryover from some other subject. It doesn't have to be breast cancer month, for us to
That's
talk
right.
about it, or domestic violence month
That is
for us to
correct.
talk about it. You have a story you want to tell or talk about. I think everybody has something that they can talk about. Everybody has a story per se. So
Everybody has a
let us
story.
know and come on and join us and put up with some of my dry jokes. You know, I
I
even
got
have a laughing track now. So if you don't laugh, I got my own little thing here. So I don't worry about you not laughing at what I say now.
okay.
But
I'm
thanks
just gonna
everybody, and we
ring my
appreciate you.
bell. How about that?
And
Good evening.
any last words before we go off? If not, well, they're laughing too much now. I think they're laughing at me now. But anyway, thanks for everybody, and we'll see you next time. And let's see if I can take us out of here on a good note.